What's happening? All right, so this video is going to take care of Fahrenheit 451, pages 107 to 115. And with this section, there is not going to be any reading journal entries at all. Now, hold on before you get too joyful. Here's what we will be doing when we're done with this section, and I'm going to give you tomorrow to work on it. By the way, I don't plan on cramming it all into one day. Now, earlier in the novel, we took a little time and we took a close look at Mildred, and I had you guys characterize Mildred in a paragraph. We're going to do the same thing with Captain Beatty. I think it's an important thing to do. I mean, he's like our lead villain, and taking a look at villains is always a good time. So I will make when I put together and release the assignment, which is not released yet. It'll be released tomorrow because I want to make sure we get the reading done first. I will have these pages that we read today available to you to copy and paste, and I'll also have that section. Beatty's speech. Remember we did that test on that? I'll throw that into the mix too. You're not limited to these two sections of text that I'll include to copy and paste from. You're welcome to thumb through the text and grab anything you think might be helpful for characterizing Captain Beatty. If you need help finding this stuff, ask. I've taught this book so many times, which means I've kind of read it like dozens of times. I could find this stuff pretty fast, even if you just give me like a description of what you're looking for. I think I can help. So you don't have to burn tons of time flipping through all 115 pages, but if you need something beyond what I'm going to provide to copy and paste, just let me know. All right, but now let's see. This is from the looks of things here on page 107. We're at the beginning of part 3, which is called Burning Bright. This is also the final part of the novel. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to finish the novel today, but the first part was called The Hearth and the Salamander. Second was the Sieve in the Sand, and part 3 is Burning Bright. And I think we can all kind of see that things are going to be wrapped up. To set the scene, this is right after Beatty and Montag and the whole fireman crew pull up in their big Salamander, and they park it right in front of Guy Montag's house, and he's like, OMG, I shouldn't try to sound cool. I'm wasting my time, I know. All right, but let's get into this part. It's wicked cool. Lights flicked on and house doors opened all down the street to watch the carnival set up. Montag and Beatty stared, one with dry satisfaction, the other with disbelief at the house before them. This main ring and with torches would be juggled and fire eaten. Well, said Beatty, now you did it. Old Montag wanted to fly near the sun, and now that he's burnt his damn wings, he wonders why. Didn't I hint enough when I sent the hound round your place? Montag's face was entirely numb and featureless. He felt his head turn like a stone carving to the dark place next door, set in its bright border of flowers. Beatty snorted. Oh no, you weren't fooled by that little idiot's routine now, were you? Flowers, butterflies, leaves, sunsets. Oh, hell, it's all in her file. I'll be damned, I've hit the bullseye. Look at the sick look on your face. A few grass blades in the quarters of the moon. What trash. What good did she ever do with all that? Montag sat on the cold fender of the Dragon, moving his head half an inch to the left, half an inch to the right, left, right, left, right, left. She saw everything. She didn't do anything to anyone. She just let them alone. Alone hell. She chewed around you, didn't she? One of those damn do-gooders with their shocked, holier-than-thou silences, their one talent, making others feel guilty. God damn, they rise like the midnight sun to sweat you in your bed. The front door opened. Mildred came down the steps, running. One suitcase held with a dream-like clenching rigidity in her fist as a beetle taxi hissed to the curb. Mildred! She ran past with her body stiff, her face floured with powder, her mouth gone without lipstick. "Mildred, you didn't put in the alarm!" She shoved the valise in the waiting Beetle, climbed in, and sat mumbling, poor family, oh, everything gone, everything gone now." Beatty grabbed Montag's shoulder as the Beetle blasted away and hit 70 miles an hour far down the street, gone. There was a crash like the falling parts of a dream fashioned out of warped glass mirrors and crystal prisms. Montag drifted about as if still another incomprehensible storm had turned him to see Stoneman and Black wielding axes, shattering window panes to provide cross-ventilation. The brush of a death's head moth against the cold black screen. "Montag, this is Faber. Do you hear me? What is happening?" "This is happening to me," said Montag. "What a dreadful surprise," said Beatty. "For everyone nowadays knows, absolutely is certain, that nothing will ever happen to me. Others die, I go on. There are no consequences and no responsibilities, except that there are. But let's not talk about them, huh? By the time the consequences catch up with you, it's too late, isn't it, Montag?" "Montag, can you get away? Run?" asked Faber. Montag walked, but did not feel his feet touch the cement and then the night grasses. Beatty flicked his igniter nearby, and the small orange flame drew his fascinated gaze. "What is there about fire that's so lovely? No matter what age we are, what draws us to it?" Beatty blew out the flame and lit it again. "It's perpetual motion. The thing man wanted to invent but never did, or almost perpetual motion. If you let it go on, it'd burn our lifetimes out. What is fire? It's a mystery. Scientists give us gobbledygook about friction and molecules, but they don't really know. Its real beauty is that it destroys responsibility and consequences. A problem gets too burdensome, then into the furnace with it. Now, Montag, you're a burden, and fire will lift you off my shoulders. Clean, quick, sure. Nothing to rot later. Antibiotic, aesthetic, practical." Montag stood looking in now at this queer house, made strange by the hour of the night, by murmuring neighbor voices, by littered glass, and there on the floor, their covers torn off and spilled out like swan feathers, the incredible books that looked so silly and really not worth bothering with, for these were nothing but black type and yellowed paper and raveled binding. Mildred, of course. She must have watched him hide the books in the garden and brought them back in. Mildred. "I want you to do this job all by your lonesome, Montag. Not with kerosene and a match, but piecework, with a flamethrower. Your house, your cleanup." "Montag, can't you run? Get away?" "No," cried Montag helplessly. "The hound. Because of the hound." Faber heard, and Beatty, thinking it was meant for him, heard. "Yes, the hound's somewhere about the neighborhood, so don't try anything. Ready?" "Ready." Montag snapped the safety catch on the flamethrower. Fire! A great nuzzling gout of flame leapt out to lap at the books and knock them against the wall. He stepped into the bedroom and fired twice, and the twin beds went up in a great simmering whisper with more heat and passion and light than he would have supposed them to contain. He burnt the bedroom walls and the cosmetics chest because he wanted to change everything, the chairs, the tables, and in the dining room the silverware and plastic dishes, everything that showed that he had lived here in this empty house with a strange woman who would forget him tomorrow, who had gone and quite forgotten him already, listening to her seashell radio pour in on her as she rode across town alone. And as before, it was good to burn. He felt himself gush out in the fire, snatch, rend, rip in half with flame, and put away the senseless problem. If there was no solution, well, then now there was no problem either. Fire was best for everything. The books, Montag. The books leapt and danced like roasted birds, their wings ablaze with red and yellow feathers. And then he came to the parlor, where the great idiot monsters lay asleep with their white thoughts and their snowy dreams, and he shot a bolt at each of the 3 blank walls, and the vacuum hissed out at him. The emptiness made an even emptier whistle. a senseless scream. He tried to think about the vacuum upon which the nothingness had performed, but he could not. He held his breath so the vacuum could not get into his lungs. He cut off its terrible emptiness, drew back, and gave the entire room a gift of one huge bright yellow flower of burning. The fireproof plastic sheath on everything was cut wide, and the house began to shudder with flame. "When you're quite finished," said Beatty behind him, "you're under arrest." The house fell in red coals and black ash, and bedded itself down in sleepy pink-gray cinders, and a smoke plume blew over it, rising and waving slowly back and forth in the sky. It was 3:30 in the morning. The crowd drew back into the houses. The great tents of the circus had slumped into charcoal and rubble, and the show was well over. Montag stood with the flamethrower in his limp hands, great islands of perspiration drenching his armpits, his face smeared with soot. The other firemen waited behind him in the darkness, their faces illuminated faintly by the smoldering foundation. Montag started to speak twice and then finally managed to put his thought together. "Was it my wife turned in the alarm?" Beatty nodded. "But her friends turned in an alarm earlier that I let ride. One way or the other, you'd have got it. It's pretty silly, quoting poetry around free and easy like that. It was the act of a silly damn snob. Give a man a few lines of verse and he thinks he's the lord of all creation. You think you can walk on water with your books. Well, the world can get by just fine without them. Look where they got you, in slime up to your lip. If I stir the slime with my little finger, you'll drown." Montag could not move. A great earthquake had come with fire and leveled the house, and Mildred was under there somewhere, and his entire life under there, and he could not move. The earthquake was still shaking and falling and shivering inside him, and he stood there, his knees half bent under the great load of tiredness and bewilderment and outrage, letting Beatty hit him without raising a hand. "Montag, you idiot! Montag, you damn fool! Why did you really do it?" Montag did not hear. He was far away. He was running with his mind. He was gone, leaving the dead soot-covered body to sway in front of another raving fool. "Montag, get out of there," said Faber. Montag listened. Beatty struck him a blow on the head that sent him reeling back. The green bullet, in which Faber's voice whispered and cried, fell to the sidewalk. Beatty snatched it up, grinning. He held it half in, half out of his ear. Montag heard the distant voice calling, "Montag, you all right?" Beatty switched the green bullet off and thrust it in his pocket. "Well, so there's more here than I thought. I saw you tilt your head, listening. First I thought you had a seashell, but when you turned clever later, I wondered. We'll trace this and drop in on your friend." "No," said Montag. He twitched the safety catch on the flamethrower. Beatty glanced instantly at Montag's fingers, and his eyes widened the faintest bit. Montag saw the surprise there, and himself glanced to his hands to see what new thing they had done. Thinking back later, he could never decide whether the hands or Beatty's reaction to the hands gave him the final push toward murder, the last rolling thunder of the avalanche stone down about his ears not touching him. Beatty grinned his most charming grin. "Well, that's one way to get an audience. Hold a gun on a man and force him to listen to your speech. Speech away! What'll it be this time? Why don't you belch Shakespeare at me, you fumbling snob? There is no terror, Cassius, in your threats, for I am armed so strong in honesty they pass by me as an idle wind, which I respect not. How's that? Go ahead now, you second-hand litterateur. Pull the trigger." He took one step toward Montag. Montag only said, "We never burned right." "Hand it over, guy," said Beatty with a fixed smile. And then he was a shrieking blaze, a jumping, sprawling, gibbering mannequin, no longer human or known, all writhing flame on the lawn as Montag shot one continuous pulse of liquid fire on him. There was a hiss like a great mouthful of spittle banging a red-hot stove, a bubbling and frothing as if salt had been poured over a monstrous black snail to cause a terrible liquefaction and a boiling over of yellow foam. Montag shut his eyes, shouted, and fought to get his hands at his ears to clamp and to cut away the sound. Beatty flopped over and over and over, and at last twisted in on himself like a charred wax doll and lay silent. The other 2 firemen did not move. Montag kept his sickness down long enough to aim the flamethrower. "Turn around!" They turned, their faces like blanched meat, streaming sweat. He beat their heads, knocking off their helmets and bringing them down on themselves. They fell and lay without moving. The blowing of a single autumn leaf. He turned, and the mechanical hound was there. It was half across the lawn, coming from the shadows, moving with such drifting ease that it was like a single solid cloud of black-gray smoke blown at him in silence. It made a single last leap into the air, coming down at Montag from a good 3 feet over his head, its sputtered legs reaching, the croquet needle snapping out its single angry tooth. Montag caught it with a bloom of fire, a single wondrous blossom that curled in petals of yellow and blue and orange about the metal dog, clad it in a new covering as it slammed into Montag and threw him 10 feet back against the bole of a tree, taking the flame gun with him. He felt it scrabble and seize his leg and stab the needle in for a moment before the fire snapped the hound up in the air, burst its metal bones at the joints, and blew out its interior in the single flushing of a red color like a skyrocket fastened to the street. Montag lay watching the dead-alive thing fiddle in the air and die. Even now it seemed to want to get back at him and finish the injection, which was now working through the flesh of his leg. He felt all the mingled relief and horror at having pulled back only in time just to have his knees slammed by the fender of a car hurtling by at 90 miles an hour. He was afraid to get up, afraid he might not be able to gain his feet at all with an anesthetized leg. A numbness in a numbness howled into a numbness. And now, the street was empty, the house burnt like an ancient bit of stage scenery, the other homes dark, the hound here, Beatty there, the 3 other firemen another place, and the salamander. He gazed at the immense engine. That would have to go too. Well, he thought, let's see how badly off you are. On your feet now. Easy, easy there. He stood, and he had only one leg. The other was like a chunk of burnt pine log he was carrying along as a penance for some obscure sin. When he put his weight on it, a shower of silver needles gushed up the length of his calf and went off in the knee. He wept. Come on, you can't stay here. A few house lights were going on again down the street, whether from the incidents just past or because of the abnormal silence following the fight, Montag did not know. He hobbled around the ruins, seizing at his bad leg when it lagged, talking and whimpering and shouting directions at it and cursing it and pleading with it to work for him now when it was vital. He heard a number of people crying out in the darkness and shouting. He reached the backyard and the alley. Beatty, he thought, you're not a problem now. You always said don't face a problem, burn it. Well, now I've done both. Goodbye, Captain. And he stumbled along the alley in the dark. All right, that's where our reading is going to stop today. Again, I'll put together those resources for you. So tomorrow you can write a killer paragraph, no pun intended, on the characterization of Captain Beatty. Alrighty? All right, so, this video is getting long. I'm going to scoot out of here. Bye.